Welcome to TEKS Talk for 8th grade Social Studies. My name is Ricky Adamson from the Teaching and Learning Division.
And my name is Shalon Bond. I am an instructional specialist for the Social Studies Department.
Throughout this video, please be on the lookout for the following indicators that teachers will be evaluated on in the Teacher Excellence Initiative, or TEI.
Please pause the video and read the TEI indicators now.
Today, we will discuss and model a deep conceptual understanding of 8.15d, which is a readiness standard. 8.15d states that students are expected to analyze how the U.S. Constitution reflects the principles of limited government, republicanism, checks and balances, federalism, separation of powers, popular sovereignty, and individual rights.
When you develop your LO for this standard, be sure to match the rigor of the verb you choose to the one in the standard. In this case, the verb is analyze, which is a higher level verb in Bloom's. In order to know how this TEKS should be analyzed, we must bundle it with 8.29b. 8.29b points out several ways to apply critical thinking skills. For this TEKS, we suggest focusing on drawing inferences or conclusions.
Well, Shalon, should students have prior knowledge in being able to apply this TEKS?
Yes. Let's take a look at the vertical alignment of 8.15d.
Please pause the video and take a look at the vertical alignment.
If you notice, there is a uniqueness about our standards. They work as building blocks. Each year, the student gets a deeper understanding of the principles. By the time students reach 8th grade, exposure to the analysis process has already been introduced, and students can build on their prior knowledge.
Well, does the alignment continue into high school?
Certainly. Please pause the video and take a look at the difference in the alignment from elementary to high school. What you notice is that the high school TEKS focus on the application of the constitutional principles throughout specific events in history.
So if we look back at 8.15d, what does it place emphasis on?
The standard makes it clear that the students are to conclude or infer how these principles are reflected in the U.S. Constitution.
So basically what you're saying is that these principles are not written in the Constitution.
Exactly. Students have to interpret the Constitution to recognize how it supports these 7 principles.
Wow, that's a loaded standard. So what's the best approach to help students master the standard?
I believe the best approach is to teach it within its unit and to continue to spiral the principle within the content through the rest of the school year. I'll tell you why. Let's look at the released 8th grade questions from STAR. As you can see, the analysis requires inferencing or drawing a conclusion. In the first question, the graphic organizer shows a process of checks and balances. The second one uses a direct quote from the U.S. Constitution to reflect federalism.
Well, is this the only place where these principles are reflected in the Constitution?
No. A thorough examination of the U.S. Constitution is required to help students identify how these principles are reflected. Let's look at the question on the right. 45% of the students got it correct, but 40% thought it was separation of powers. So this proves the importance of unpacking and teaching the entire standard until it is mastered.
I noticed you left out the multiple choice answers. Is that on purpose?
Yes. Students should be given the opportunity to struggle with the content in an effort to develop their own understanding of how these principles are reflected. They have to be comfortable to differentiate between 7 principles to deduce the correct reflection.
Okay, well, do you have an example of what you're describing?
Yes. Let's look at Article 2, Section 2, the executive branch. Students should be given the opportunity to read Part 1 and conclude which principle is reflected by evaluating each one until they conclude that it's separation of powers. This process will ensure their in-depth knowledge of this standard.
Okay, so I see. So, can a section of the Constitution reflect more than one principle?
It sure can. Let's continue to look at Article 2, Section 2, but focus on Part 2. You try. What principles do you think are reflected here?
Well, of course, he still has separate power, but it includes consent by 2/3 of the Senate. So his power is limited, and the Senate gets to check and balance his decision when making a treaty.
Exactly. This is the exact process and conclusion students must be able to do to master this standard.
Okay, so what are some ways to differentiate the instruction of this standard?
Well, Ricky, as we discussed earlier, 8.15D becomes an applied standard in high school. The more opportunities students are given to apply the standard will help solidify their understanding of the terms how and reflect. Let's look at the Compromise of 1850 as an example. The Constitution has now been in existence for over 50 years. Spiraling the seven principles will help students understand them as a major concept.
Using a concept map will assist students in creating a visual interpretation of 8.15D. By asking how is this an example of popular sovereignty, helps students make connections with the Constitution as a living document.
Some additional options include allowing students to create an acronym. This will help in recognizing and remembering the principles and recalling their meaning. For example, some people like riding in fast cars.
Scaffolding the principles by using prior knowledge from previous grade levels can also help students remember the origin of the principles. One other tool that can be used for ongoing practice is setting up isolated stations as a Tier 3 that emphasizes one principle. Based on student data, allow for individualized instruction to reinforce their understanding until mastery is met. Let's go back to the released questions. Shalon, what I hear you saying is that this standard cannot be taught only once. It's going to take time, and spiraling these principles as major concepts will help the students master this text.
And the better students understand the application of this standard in history, it will serve as a foundation for political understanding through high school and beyond.
True, because the Constitution is still governing us. Therefore, these principles still exist today. That's pretty interesting.
Very.
Okay, thank you for watching the 8th grade Teaks Talk video series. We hope that these instructional practices impact your teaching in the classroom and may provide meaningful learning experiences for the students. For more information, contact the Social Studies Department using the contact information on your screen. Thank you and have a great day.